the McElroy figure.
I do.
Yes, and it's a pretty interesting story. Would you mind sharing that with people?
Not at all. I love the story. I have been a McElroy fan for years and years, like so many ventriloquists. The first time I saw a McElroy figure was when I went to the Benthaven Museum. I was 11 or 12 years old at the time. And this was back in the day when they were a little bit more relaxed with actually letting people kind of handle the figures.
Wow.
And so when I went to Benthaven back then, I had no idea how to find somebody to actually build a professional ventriloquist figure. But I was interested enough in ventriloquism to kind of make that next step, to go from using a toy, string in the back of the neck type of figure to a real professional figure. So one of my hopes was to find at least a list of who I could contact to have something like that made. Well, I was at the museum, and of course they had these McElroys, and as an 11-year-old kid, I was totally captivated, all the mechanics that was involved, and asked, well, how do you get one of those? And of course they said, well, the McElroys don't make these anymore, and you and, dozens of other ventriloquists would love to get their hands on one of these. So that's a little bit of the backstory of my interest in the McElroy figures. Fast forward to 2001, I was doing a show actually at a church. It was for a Singles Again ministry. After the show, a woman came up to me and told me that her grandfather was a ventriloquist and that she now had the figure that he used in his act. And of course, I wasn't thinking anything about, that this might possibly be an original McElroy or anything like that. But I got to talking with her about it, and I said, well, do you know anything about who made this particular figure? And she said, well, I think my father said it was made by a couple of brothers in Ohio or something like that. And I was like, okay, no way. There is just no way. So I asked her a few more questions. Does this have lots of, moving parts? Like, does the hair pop up? Does the tongue stick out? Do the ears wiggle? She said, oh, yeah, it has all that. And then I was like, okay, it sounds like what you have may very well be built by the McElroy brothers. Now, what you need to know is that if that is a McElroy figure, I may very well wet my pants if I have an opportunity just to see this thing. Also, what you need to know is that these are incredibly rare and valuable. I was very upfront with her about this. And of course, I didn't even know if she was actually interested in selling it. It sounded like that perhaps she was, because she sort of suggested that, well, this is just sitting around in my house and nobody's doing anything with it. So if you're interested, it was one of those kind of conversations. Well, naturally, as being the figure that it was, I was very interested. But I also wanted to be very upfront with her about the value of what she had. And I also said to her, if it's in fact a McElroy, I'm pretty sure that I probably can't afford to pay you what he's worth. But let's not get the cart before the horse here. I would love to take a look at it. And if it is a McElroy, I'll know right away. Well, I went to her house the next day, and she had it actually sitting out on the sofa. Walked in the house and walked over to the sofa, and this is a little bit embarrassing, but I actually started to cry. I was just so blown away that that she had a McElroy, and that I actually had an opportunity to perhaps even acquire this thing. Well, we had a conversation about the value of it and so on, and she said, no, actually, I think it would be really great for you to have him. And I said, well, understand, I could probably, I don't know him personally, but I could probably get you in contact with David Copperfield, who would, I'm sure, be very interested in this guy and would pay you top dollar. And she said, well, the reason that I would want you to have him is because I think it would be great to see him back in performance. And I said, well, of course, that's why these things are built. And not only would I do that, but you could be sure that I would treasure this guy. She said, well, as I was having a conversation last night after you and I talked, she said, I was driving home, and she said, I distinctly believe that God spoke to me and that he told me that he's been saving this guy for you. Well, then I was just a mess. I was just blown away by her kindness in those words. Well, naturally, I wanted to pay her something, and I did pay her. At least, even for me, was a substantial amount of money, and she was willing to take what I was able to offer her, and so that's how I acquired that guy.